the first time I became a parent.
The moment I became a parent, I can never forget.
Where do I even begin?
One day I went to the hospital and saw my wife there, and she was holding a small wet man that I had never seen before. She said, "This strange wet man came out of my body, and now you need to love him."
I walked into the delivery room, and my wife was holding our daughter in her arms. The baby was so small and beautiful, I couldn't believe it. And a doctor took me aside and he said to me, "We've run the tests, and this baby's gonna grow up to rip you in half." And I said to the doctor, "That's the best news I ever heard."
I was so worried that I'd screw up or that I wouldn't know the best way to care for my child, but it turns out I didn't have to worry about anything because the owl started feeding my daughter right away.
Soon I was showing everyone at work all the pictures of the tiny wet stranger. I couldn't stop showing them the pictures. I was always handing them a picture of him and saying, "Here's the wet man. I don't know who he is, and he came out of my wife's body."
It's definitely exhausting. My husband and I were constantly waking up in the middle of the night to let the owls into the house so that they could feed my daughter seeds, bring her small rocks as gifts, and place a crown made of mice bones on her head.
There was a lot of joy, but there was also a lot of stress because I knew that I was responsible for making sure this baby grew up to become the kind of person who could rip me in half.
All of a sudden, you live only to serve the small wet man. You are his slave. You need to put all of your food into his mouth. It's very hard.
It gets very stressful, and it's a lot of hard work, but then you see an owl look into your infant daughter's eyes and shriek, "She has returned," and that makes it all worth it.
When a tiny wet stranger comes out of your life, you have to cherish your time with him because eventually he turns into a big dry doofus, and you have to throw things at him until you're both dead.
When my daughter grows up and finally tears me in half, I hope that she throws my right half onto the field at Yankee Stadium because I met my wife at Yankee Stadium. And I hope she throws my left half at a gorilla because gorillas are my favorite animal.
I always thought that the day that my daughter was born would always be the greatest day of my life, but I was wrong. The greatest day of my life was when my infant daughter came into my room wearing her crown of mice bones and whispered the word eternity before bursting into a swarm of 1,000 owls. I was so proud. As a parent, every day brings you a little more joy than the day before.